Hello, I'm Joel Hargis with the Florida Aviation Network. We are here at Sun and Fun 2024, a very special year at Sun and Fun as it is the 50th anniversary of Sun and Fun. And so, great show this year, absolutely a great show. I encourage anybody to come on out. It is Thursday and a little rain this afternoon, but it's supposed to be beautiful later in the day and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So please get out here. So as you know, there's many things to do at Sun and Fun, many things to do. But one of the things we always work on is pilot safety. And the Florida Aviation Network, one of our absolute credos is pilot safety. And so today I have Major Cameron
Lowdon.
Lowdon.
There we go.
Oh, it's Lowdon. I can see it now. I can't read very well.
All good.
Anyway, so you want Cameron or Divot?
Whatever you like, sir. I answer by everything.
We'll go with Cameron.
Okay.
So, Cameron, you're with the Canadian Air Force.
Yes, sir.
NORAD.
Yep. So I'm at headquarters, Colorado Springs, at Peterson Space Force Base. Colorado Springs, the headquarters for NORAD. It's a great spot. We've got about 150 Canadians that are stationed there, and I'm very fortunate to be one of the fellows down there. We work hand in hand, side by side with our Americans for the protection of the North American aerospace, and that's our prime mission for NORAD. And it certainly has been an interesting time for the NORAD history and everything like that. So, but we're doing what we can right now.
So yeah, you appear to be in long enough to know 9/11.
Yes, I do.
And
actually.
I bet you remember where you were that day.
I was working in the Canadian Air Force Air Defense sector in North Bay, Ontario, and for an air defense controller like myself, it was obviously a very horrific day, but it's certainly a day that was etched in the air defense community's memory banks. Just one of those. I can't believe we're doing this for real.
Right, and made everybody have to take their game up a notch, and
we did.
New rules, new processes and procedures, and
yep,
everything came of that.
As you know, NORAD, we were originally designed, created in 1958. At the time, we were in the Cold War, and the Russian menace was the concern for the safety of North America. So for many years, 43 years I think it was, that was our primary mission in NORAD, just to protect against any adversarial threats we may have. 9/11 changed it, so we had to concentrate ourselves on looking at that threat to North America that might start on the outside coming in, and we had to start looking internally, and that really changed how we went about business, because we weren't really ready for it at that time. From that, we created a set of operations called Operation Noble Eagle, and we've been using that now for over 20 years now, since 9/11. Right. Involves with very TFR defense. Protection of the President of the United States. We have the Special Flight Rules area in Washington, D.C. Both are 30-mile rings. I won't say no fly, that's not the exact way, because there's still ways of going through them with enough coordination and planning on the pilot's part. But if we don't know who an aircraft is that's going into one of these particular spots, we have to figure it out. We have to figure out who the aircraft is and what their intentions are, so we can perhaps stop another 9/11 type situation.
And you have to do that very quickly when the threat comes from within.
Absolutely. We call it a fast twitch event, and so we have air bases around both Canada and the United States that they're ready to jump at a moment's notice. And
so I have interviewed some NORAD pilots, like I talked about Boat.
Good friend of mine.
Yep. I know he was an F-16 driver, but you were telling me multiple sets of equipment around the United States and Canada for intercept and NORAD protection. What all are they using?
Very true, Joel. Depends where you are in the U.S. or Canada as to what you might have come up on your wingtip. F-16s, F-15s, predominantly the aircraft. If you're in Alaska, you may run into F-22s. F-35s are now slowly coming into the inventory. We're going to stand up our first ACA unit at Madison, Wisconsin here in the next short while. So they're training. Canada, you'd have the CF-18, but we've just announced that we're going to get the F-35. So in a few years, you're going to start to see that incorporated in the Canadian inventory. If you're in Washington, D.C. CIFRA area, you may get intercepted by a Coast Guard helicopter that can go nice and slow, and he's got a sign on the side of the helicopter like the Goodyear blimp that says, "Please follow me."
Get the heck out of here.
Get the heck out of here. They're also supported. Those are the ones you see, and they're supported by other aircraft as well. You can't do anything without tankers if you're holding orbit for a long period of time. Depends where the president is. We may have an AWACS requirement, and so those aircraft will also be used by NORAD to accomplish our mission.
So I actually love this subject because I just love it. Anyway, so for all of us general aviation pilots out there, particularly those of you that aren't IFR rated and not flying what we refer to as in the system, because if you're in the system and you're following directions from ATC, it's really hard to venture into one of these spots.
It is. We find that the majority of the incursions that we have into one of these areas, the CIFRA, the presidential TFR, is general aviation crowd just not doing what they should be doing. They're not mission planning correctly. They're not mission planning enough. They get lazy, and so we come to these shows and we try and educate through we have a civilian air education and training program that at the end of the day really pays for itself. So we come to these shows and we try and get word out to the general aviation community. Hey folks, read your NOTAMs, check for your TFRs, do the steps, the things that you're required to do as a pilot, not only to help us, but this is to help you, because ultimately we could be keeping them out of trouble, and we don't want that.
So let's go through the process.
Sure.
I've blown it, right?
Yep.
I've just went into a TFR, and I'm not on a frequency. Nobody's telling me turn the heck around, and I'm flying along, and an F-16 pulls up on my left wing. Is that explain to me the intercept?
Absolutely.
And go through that whole process for all of our audience, because it's something they need. Who better to hear it from than NORAD?
Exactly. You say you start with the point of an F-16 shows up, but we've actually started long before that. We are in direct contact with the FAA, if you're in Canada, NAV Canada, and we're getting a tip-off from them that, hey, we got an aircraft that's approaching the 30-mile ring of concern, and we start doing things in advance already. So when you're getting ready to hit 30, stuff is already happening behind the scenes. So we could be bringing that aircraft in. He could be on a ground alert and is scrambled. He could be on an airborne alert, and we just bring him over. And once he's rolled up on you, his intentions, we're trying to figure out who you are and what you're going to do. Because if we don't know that, our job is to protect the center of that TFR.
Absolutely.
And once we've accomplished that, then there's a whole other bunch of steps of things to happen, not involving us. Our job is to protect that center. So the first thing you're going to see when that F-16 comes up is he's going to be rocking his wings. He'll probably approach on the left-hand side merely because the aircraft commander is generally on the left side of the aircraft.
Right.
He's going to be rocking his wings, trying to get your attention. Quite often, the general aviation guy goes, what a coincidence, there's a military airplane up here. That's cool, and he waves back.
Cool, a jet.
Yeah, exactly, and he carries on, oblivious to what the real reason he's up there. So our aircraft will come off at that point. We're going to say that we were unsuccessful in getting your attention. So he's going to do a guide, hoping that you're going to follow him. And he's taking you away from the center of that TFR, which we're tasked to defend.
So stop right there. So when he rolls off, you should follow him.
We'd love you to follow him.
That would be good.
Perfect. We've done our job. We're getting you away from that center. It's when he hasn't done that, and now we're starting to get a little more nervous in Colorado Springs and the headquarters and the various sectors that are controlling the aircraft. So the next approach you're going to see is we're going to do a maneuver called a headbutt, and we're getting a little more concerned. So he's going to...
That doesn't sound good.
Exactly. Well, if you see it for real, it's not a good thing. So he's going to rock the wings a few more times, but ultimately he's going to pass across your nose safely. So he's going to come in a little high, and he's going to start dispensing flares from the aircraft. And that should be a signal that this is not right.
Yeah, this is bad.
This is bad. So again, we're now hoping that you're going to follow him away from the center of that TFR. And it's one of the things that we do, the standard ICAO signals that are out there that a pilot should be aware of is we tell you exactly what we're going to do. We tell you that we're going to do that guide maneuver. We tell you that we're going to do that headbutt. And we tell you what we want you to do, which is follow us. It's the flinchiness that we don't like. So we'll have a guy turn away from the airplane because the bad guy, the fighter, is going that way. I'm going to go the other way. And that could actually turn right into the center of the TFR, which now really makes us nervous, and we start to consider further ramifications that can happen. So,
What? I don't know. I've done this a few times. What's next?
Well, we're going to do that headbutt maneuver many times.
Right.
We'll do it more than once if we have to. Ultimately, and knock on wood, this has never happened, but if it gets far enough up the system, the direction could be given. If it looks like it could pose a 9/11 type ending, we could be given the order to shoot down the aircraft. Has never happened, and hopefully it never does happen. That's why we come to these shows. We want to educate. As you can see, doing all that, it costs money, it costs resources.
Yeah, a lot of money.
We don't want to do that. We want the general aviation to know what they're doing. We want them to fly safe. We want them to fly in a manner that we know what's happening. And we just don't want that to happen again.
So, so let's say it got as far as the headbutt, and you're firing flares, and they're like, "Oh, I get it. I'm going to follow this guy," because normally they take you right down to a field and pull away, and you land.
Yep.
That's the proper thing to do.
Exactly.
So once you land after you've been forced down like that,
it's not over.
That's
Nope,
my question.
it's not over.
What's next for the pilot?
So we have done our job. We have gotten the aircraft away from the center. The threat is now removed. Now you get into the law enforcement side of the house. So that pilot is going to be told to stay where he is. Somebody is going to come out to talk to him, and depending on what TFR we're involved with, it could be Secret Service gets involved, FBI, local law enforcement, but you're going to be told to wait until security talks to you so we can find out why
Don't even get out of the aircraft.
You may get out of the aircraft. The aircraft or fighter may be orbiting overhead until we get confirmation somebody's come out to you, just to keep that custody of the aircraft, of the, we'll call it the target. So he'll orbit overhead until we make sure that it's been passed off to the security side of the house. We've done our job. It's now somebody else's job, and what happens to that pilot depends. You know, if it was just somebody that got lost, bad weather pushed them into the TFR, for example, they're going to be treated differently than the guy that flies through the TFR, waves at the fighter aircraft as it's there, blissfully continues, disregards all direction given to him. He's going to be looked at differently than that "I got lost" type of aspect.
So one of the other things we discussed is, and something I encourage and don't fly without hardly ever, and that's, I mean, if you're a VFR pilot only, get flight following.
Yep.
You be talking and squawking, because if you're talking and squawking, ATC's probably not going to let you go there anyway. But if you're just flying along, happy-go-lucky, squawking 1200, and you're not talking to anybody.
Plan, squawk, talk is what we always say. Plan, do your mission planning in advance. Squawk something. When you go through one of these areas, we've told you you can. You just have to plan it out a little bit more. You're going to get to switch to a discrete mode 3. If you fly through one of these areas squawking 1200, you are telling us, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Come get me. I'm right here, 1200, very visible to everybody. And you brought up a good point. Always talk. When this process, before you even get to the 30 miles, somebody's trying to reach you on a radio.
I'm sure.
Whether it's the last one you were on, guard, 121.5, somebody is trying to reach you. So plan, squawk, talk.
There you go. That's great advice. And like I say, unless I'm going to just fly 20 miles or something, I'm always squawking and talking.
Yep.
And if I'm going much farther than that, I'm in the system.
Then that's great. You're not our target audience. It's the folks that do this sometimes.
And we just hope that, you know, people hear this, and again, it's all about planning. And so speaking of planning, not that I have a need to do this, but if my flight plan takes me through the DC area, I know you have to take a test. Go through the process for that.
So there's an FAA test that you'd find online. You follow that, you get a certificate printed. Once you've taken that, you'll know all the steps. And again, you can go through that 10 to 30 mile part of the circle. You can go through it, you just have to coordinate. However, the best advice is, if you don't have to fly through the DC CIFRA and you're not comfortable doing it, don't go through it.
Yeah.
Easiest way to not get into trouble is don't go there.
I would think on an IFR flight plan, they're going to vector you around that anyway.
You're talking to no, not necessarily. If you're on IFR, they'll bring you through it because you're talking to somebody. We know who you are. It's the guy we don't know who they are and what their intentions are. That's the ones that we get nervous about.
It's funny because, like, even anywhere, like I go by Atlanta a lot, and they just vector me way out around.
Yep. It's a busy spot there.
Well, and it's for air traffic.
Yep.
I get it. So, and that test you have to take to go through that DC area, does that have to be renewed, do you know?
I'm actually not sure of the length and duration of its validity, but check it online, FAA. It'll be more than clear to anybody that's interested.
Do you have anything like that near Ottawa?
So Canada does things a little bit differently. We don't have
yes, they do.
They do. We don't have a special Ottawa CIFRA, for example. We don't have the presidential, or in our case, the Prime Minister 30-mile ring around that. We will set up TFRs around certain events. If we're hosting a G8, a G20, we have set up no-fly areas for those. One of the things that NORAD will cover, for example, is a Super Bowl. It's a special event, and that's one that we'll cover. Well, when the Super Bowl was in Detroit, that 30-mile ring goes into Canada, so there had to be coordination done with that as well. So we were involved in that one. So we just treat it a little bit differently in Canada. The whole NORAD concept, though, is the same. If there's something that's happening near a border, we can use Canadian assets to come into the United States to prosecute. Conversely, if you have somebody from the U.S. going into Canada, we can bring in U.S. aircraft into Canada, and that's part of the great aspect of NORAD. The fact that we are doing it together is we can share resources that way.
Well, yeah, and it's North American.
North America.
What does NORAD, N-O-R-A-D, what is that?
North American Aerospace Defense.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would think, well, I don't think, around Alaska. That's been kind of a hot zone lately, has it not?
Alaska is, and it always has been. It goes through periods of activity that we get involved with. When the Russians they want to come in and to see what's happening. So they'll fly by. Everything is always done, safety of flight. There's no real rules being broken. They'll come in, test ours. We do the same to them, and just test how long it might take and where we'll see them, and go out and say hi.
So nah, no kidding. So you're just kind of playing with each other.
Playing is probably a cute word, but we're doing stuff that we know what we're going to expect, and they also know what we're going to do, and it happens a few times a year.
Yeah, so a serious amount of mutual respect, I would think, particularly among the pilots. Right?
That's a good way of looking at it, yeah.
The government, you know, but I mean, if I'm on either side, and all of a sudden I'm engaged with the enemy, you know,
it's you know, hopefully, you know, we're not going to have a war start right there, but this is all just part of the game that's been played for 65 plus years, the Cold War. It's still an extension of that. It's gone through ebbs and flows as to the amount that we'll see it, and but it's gone on for decades.
I got a good question for you. I just thought of this. Talk to me about the Chinese balloon.
Chinese balloon, okay. NORAD, it was tracked. We followed the directions of the leadership that we were given, and we tracked it, and when we were told to take tactical action, we took our tactical action. So, based on what we hear as the public, that was a very rare event. It was. I'm not going to get into the specifics of the object itself. Again, part of the things that NORAD has dealt with through the years, we've had balloons before, not perhaps to that extent, but there's always stuff coming through the airspace that we have to look at, and a tactical decision will be made depending on what the object is. So.
Right. So we're down here to just less than a couple minutes. You guys have a booth or a table set up here?
We do. So this is one of the great things under the CAET program that we have. We've been coming to the shows, AOPA events, things like that. We set up a booth. We talk about NORAD. We talk to the general aviation crowd, and that's really our audience. And we come to these big air shows, Sun and Fun, Oshkosh, in Canada, Abbotsford. And in the last 2 years now, we've been able to do a flying display. So we'll do exactly what we just described about 5 minutes ago. We'll launch a target aircraft that's flown by one of our NORAD pilots, and he'll simulate the unknown aircraft that penetrates a TFR. And we'll have a fighter aircraft that will scramble from the ground, launch him out, and he comes in and he demonstrates each of those maneuvers we talked about. So the first pass will be rocking his wings.
You doing that here?
We did it. We did it yesterday. We were going to do it today, but sadly the weather's not going to happen. So our next show we're going to do it on the first day at Oshkosh. So
Okay,
come on up
cool.
to Oshkosh, and it's been really successful. We've had great feedback.
I've never
on
seen that. I'd love to see that.
It's a good show. It's 12 to 13 minutes. We get it in real quick. We outline exactly to the crowd of what they're going to see, why they're going to see it, what we want to see the pilots do, and what they don't do.
And that's fairly new, doing that demo.
We just started last year.
Yeah.
So
I've never seen that.
no,
So
it's great.
that's awesome. I'm so glad you came by. I mean, we do this year after year after year, trying to create awareness for you guys, for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, ultimately what you guys do is keep us safe, and God bless your service, right?
Thank you. We have a kind of a little catchphrase is we have the watch. So NORAD's
have the watch.
NORAD's always looking for keeping North America, Canada, the United States, aerospace, the people. We have the watch.
All right. Well, we're out of time.
Joel, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
So I'm Joel Hargis with the Florida Aviation Network. Here at Sun and Fun 2024, the 50th anniversary. Come out and see the show.